Welcome, Darklings, to Season 3 of the Reign of Blood podcast. I'm Ember, one of your hosts, here to introduce you to the shadowy depths of what hopes to be our most sinister season yet. This season, your unholy trinity of organizers and hosts, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and myself, have entirely way too much fun with the Summer of Stabs, our 80s horror-themed series that promises to be both educational and thrilling. Our aim is to explore the macabre beauty that lies in the shadowed, or maybe not so shadowed, spaces of desire. Leading up to Reign of Blood Nightfall, our advanced Halloween extravaganza, we'll be discussing topics such as embodied and informed consent, risk mitigation, and other helpful tips, ensuring that every prick, slice, and puncture is as thought through as it is sensational for you. We'll also continue interviewing sharps enthusiasts from around the world to find out what makes the blood-loving heart tick. And maybe we'll talk Miss K into recording some more horror meditations for us. Join us as we explore the eerie, the edgy, and the exquisitely sharp. This is Reign of Blood, where the macabre meets the magnificent, and the only limit is your imagination, risk profile, and informed consent. Let the Summer of Stabs begin. But first, a content warning. This podcast is not suited for individuals who are not legal adults, are not interested in heavier BDSM practices, who are presently having severe mental or relationship health concerns, or who do not already understand basic BDSM practices regarding consent, ethics, risk mitigation, etc. Topics may include things like mental health issues, social issues, injustice, blood and sharks, of course, medical trauma, medical issues, trauma of various types, and more. Listener discretion is heavily advised.
Hey, amazing humans. Welcome back to Reign of Blood, and we have an amazing guest and Paolla from Brazil but living in the US. So welcome to my studio and to my dungeon virtually, and it's really lovely to have you. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting.
I've actually followed you on Instagram for a while, secretly. So when you sent me the picture that I'm going to use for this podcast of your LOBAS basic, that you did on your tummy, I really loved that like ages ago. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same human. And the picture stuck in my mind and was just really, really a beautiful picture. But before we talk totally about sharp things, do you want to just tell everybody how you came from being a normal muggle who lived a vanilla life and to finding kink and finding sharps?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've always been interested in the kink world. I guess I just didn't have the right way of getting in. I tried some different things and it was never quite right. Last year, at the end of 2022, I met my current partner and he's into lots of different kinds of play. I had seen lots of needle pictures on his profile, which scared me a lot, and I couldn't even really look at the pictures. And we started off more with rope and some impact, very light, but it did in a few months progress to a needle scene. And it just felt amazing. I loved it. And usually every time we do something, I love it. I want more. I always want more. So we very quickly went to doing lots of needles and it just felt amazing. I really like the way the pain is very manageable for me, but also creates such a visually impactful scene. And I love how the pictures come out too.
Talk to me a little bit about that first needle experience. And I think we all had this I know for me, I had this huge big thing in my head, and the first prick wasn't what I expected it to be, and it just sort of set the tone for definitely finding a future in sharp things. So tell me a little bit about how that was for you.
It was very scary. It was the first time he let me choose the music that was playing. I remember I chose Misfits for some reason, and then it was too hard. The music was too hard, and I was feeling that pain. And it was on that first time that we tried it that I figured out how to get through the pain, which was pretty much just letting the pain flow through my whole body instead of tensing up. And when I started doing that and just allowing myself to relax through each needle prick, it just really quickly sent me somewhere very exciting. And so it wasn't actually that difficult the first time we put in, I want to say something like 60 needles on my first time. So from the
Wow.
beginning, I already went a little bit bigger and just really loving the sensation it was giving me while the scene was happening.
And you speak a little bit about allowing that pain to move through you. I think there's a lot in that. I think you've got to be quite accepting of the experience. I think for me, if I tense and I resist it, it's worse. And if I sort of allow my body to absorb it and to become part of me and to just breathe through it, it's incredibly relaxing, which sounds a bit ridiculous when you're talking about pain, but and I think there's a comfort in the pain because I kind of know what is the worst I'm going to expect from the situation. So I don't have to disassociate. I can actually be present, and I find it quite clarifying and something that's really become quite special in my life. And it's just a place where the white noise in my head seems to switch off and stop. Do you find that you find subspace in needles, or is it something that's more sort of that makes you more present, or what sort of mindset accompanies a session?
I think you described it really perfectly. Exactly that. Like if I relax through it and just breathe, I am really present. I don't need to go somewhere else, and I can feel each prick and be there for it. But it does send me into subspace. I guess I kind of feel like I'm high from it. That relaxing and letting the pain flow through my whole body just creates this sensation of being kind of high. So even though I'm there and I'm present and I don't feel a need to keep closing my eyes and going somewhere else, I also am like flying through it. And after, when we take the needles out, which hurt quite a lot for me, I actually think it hurts more when the needles come out. It kind of like wakes me up and brings me back to the scene, to where I am with that sharper pain of the removal. But while we're doing the needles and putting it in, I'm kind of flying through it. It feels really nice.
Love that. I'm interested about the removal and that you find it quite. I barely feel the removal. The removal for me is it's not something that I'm going to be more conscious of how I experience it the next time after talking to you, because maybe it's something I've just overlooked. But it's so interesting that we all have different reactions. I find the removal very settling, and I'm a bit sad because I never really want them to come out. So
Yeah, absolutely. I never want them to come out, because then when they come out, I come back, and it's kind of over for me. And since it's different from impact where the pain lasts, once they come out and the pain goes away, it's kind of like it's over. And so I want it to last. And I think that's why I like the big scenes with lots of needles, because it just lasts so much longer. But yeah, the removal, I don't know, it just stings in a way that I don't really like. It's not my favorite type of pain. I have found that when I do them myself and I remove the needles, if I go really slowly, I actually don't feel it at all. And I don't mind removing my own needles, but when my partner removes them, it hurts quite a lot. But that's also why I found that I actually really like the zippers, or just pulling them all at once. Sometimes I tie a little string on a bunch of them and tug them all out at once. And that way I kind of do like it, because the pain is more intense and is less of just the one sting after another. So I like that intensity when they all come out together.
you talk about sting. With the sting for needles with me is when somebody uses like a really like a 20, anything above a 22 gauge. They become really spicy. I prefer the
Mhm.
bigger gauges because they're I think if you compare it to impact, you get like stingy and thuddy implements. So like
Mhm.
little needles are terribly stingy for me. They're very spicy. And the bigger needles are more thuddy is probably not the right word to use, but if you had to compare it to the situation.
Mhm.
But I'm definitely going to pay more attention to how I take them out. I think I do quite a lot of self-piercing, so I remove them a lot on my own, and I kind of tend to swipe sort of 7 or 8 of them out at a time with my hand because they come out quite quickly. Because I love to get the blood patterns to run down. And I think very early on in my journey, Mel Sprinkles was speaking about how she gets those beautiful cascading blood patterns, and she was saying that you start at the bottom and you've got to remove them quite quickly. So like it's like it became like a challenge to see if I could start at the bottom and remove them super fast, super fast. So maybe that's why I'm not feeling them. But I'm gonna do the next lot slowly and let you know how it goes.
Well, I think for me, it's because really I'm not a top. I'm definitely a bottom. And thinking about hurting myself is never something that had been in my mind. So putting my own needles or removing my own needles is something very odd for me. It's not like me at all. So I do go very slowly. I'm trying to avoid giving myself any pain because that's not my thing, giving myself pain. So it is different when I do it to myself. It's always very, very slow when I put in or take out my own needles, unless I'm yanking them all at once. It's usually a very slow process.
And that's so interesting that I find the mindset when I top for myself like super different than if I'm topping for somebody else or if I'm bottoming for needles. And I definitely also find like I'm very deliberate with my own needles, and I can almost get it to a point where there's hardly any pain. I can feel them going
Mhm.
in, but I can feel the pressure of the needle more than I can actually feel the pain of the needle going in. And I'm not sure if it's because my mind is focused on the job or if it's that I've just got so attuned to knowing what sort of pressure I need to apply to put the needle in that I'm working with myself. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit. But I definitely want to pierce myself. I really don't find the experience painful at all. I find it quite pleasant and relaxing, and yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I do that when I do my own. It's always it's the whole afternoon. I set up a table with snacks and I just really take my time. It's a very, very slow process that I really enjoy. Definitely being deliberate. I've been enjoying doing like patterns or stencils and trying different designs. But I do also choose spots on my body that I know are less painful, like my breasts or my stomach, because I just don't like causing pain to myself.
I'm so impressed with your stomach. My stomach is super spicy. It's like it's really anti-sharp things. Like I can stick needles in my leg with no issue when I have to think about doing them in my tummy. Even just now, I'm getting a bit nervous and thinking
It's
like
fun.
and thinking like, oh, that's gonna be quite sore. I think that's why your picture with this pink with the pink hubs of the star on your tummy stuck in my head so much because I had so much admiration for that. I was like, wow, I did my LOBAS basic on my thighs, and it was a big challenge at the time. I was quite new to sharps and to self-piercing and to sharps, and it was quite a big challenge for me. If I'd had to do it on my stomach, there was no way I would have finished it. I think I really held you in quite high regard with that.
Oh, well, that star was funny because I had tried putting needles a couple times in myself, and then Valentine's was coming up, and I felt like doing a little self-care thing, and I wanted to do a heart for myself. So obviously it needed to be pink. I didn't even think the size of the gauge. I just knew I had some pink needles. And when I went to put them in, of course, they were the biggest needles I had. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And I put them in. And after I was done with the scene, I counted and there were 48 needles. And I was a little pissed off that I was so close to getting a Lobas without realizing it, that I was like, okay, I'm going to redo this. I'm going to make sure I put in 50 this time so I can get a Loba. So that's when I did the star, because I was just pissed off that I got so close and didn't do it.
I love that. I think that's amazing. But yeah, huge respect for where you pierce because I think that's a huge ask. And I love you spoke a little bit about having a process for self-piercing, for setting intent, and setting the scene. And I really, a couple of things really stand out there for me. I think we live these really hectic lives, and I love hearing about how people take time to care for themselves, and that's almost like a self-care routine. It's almost
Mhm.
like a preparing, preparing space so that you can hold space for yourself. I
Yeah.
really just appreciate that. And it becomes a bit of a ritual. I have a little table that I always use, um, and I have to say, I love the idea of snacks because mine also always contains some kind of amazing snack. Snacks are life as I get older. So I really appreciated that. What else goes into that moment for you, and what type of music do you listen to?
Well, the music will vary a lot. Usually, it's just something that makes me feel nice. I like something that I can sing along to. It just keeps me distracted. I like cooking and baking a lot, so that's why I like to make the snacks. And I'll usually make like something like my favorite food. I'll make like some sushi or something to have like really special. And I have kids, so it's hard. I don't really get a lot of time, especially alone at home. Like I can make some time and get out of the house, but to have time alone at home to do a project like this is very rare. So I'll usually be thinking about a project for a while, and when an opportunity comes up and my kids happen to be out of town, I'll set everything up and it'll turn into an all day process. Well, I'll clean the kitchen and I'll make some food and I'll set up the whole table and I'll sit down and spend some hours doing and another hour taking pictures, then a really nice shower after. And it's pretty much a whole day thing. It just feels so nice to and just do it for myself in a project that is just thought by me and done by myself with no one else involved. It's really really interesting because I do come from an artistic background and did work with arts for a while, so I guess it's something I miss, just creating something.
I think that's and why sharps appeals to me so much is the ability to create something, and the skin has become this canvas for me that is and it's quite working with different mediums, it's quite a special canvas because it has its own elasticity, and the journey of the piece is not just the needles. The journey of the piece then becomes the healing for me and watching how the body responds. And then I feel really empowered being able to take care of that canvas and give it the best stuff to heal well. And so I really think it's like it takes art and it makes it really 3D for me, and it makes it a bit of a lived experience because it's not just the final piece is sort of 3 months afterwards. I have just done my silver LOBAS, and it was an interesting journey because the marks are still there and they're changing. But I can still see the pattern and the pattern is still beautiful. So it's been quite an interesting observation, and that the art is almost still alive on my body and working with me and growing with me and changing with me. And I find that quite cool about the piece. I think it's more rewarding than the sort of pencil sketch that hangs on the wall and looks the same for the rest of its life.
Yes, absolutely. I think how the way it's temporary and you kind of only get one shot to do it. If any problems that come up become part of that piece. I worked with theater for a long time, for almost 10 years. So it reminds me of that, how each time you do it, even if you do it exactly the same, it always comes out different. And even if there's a problem, it really becomes part of that art. And I appreciate every little needle that comes out a little bit crooked that I wish hadn't been that way. It just reminds me of things in the moment that were happening. I just love it. And then afterwards, the marks that are left and that pattern that's left, sometimes a little bumpy and you can feel it. And that's also very special to see that on the skin after. I love it.
Yeah, the pattern is gorgeous. I got stuck in my head a little bit in one point. I'm loving listening to your theater analogy and how the pieces that are um not issues is the wrong word, but our challenges become part of the piece and part of the art. And I'm really going to embrace that because I kind of got stuck in my head a little bit in my shops journey and aimed for this almost perfectionism. And I lost the ability to appreciate what I was getting. And I lost the ability to appreciate the experience at one point. So I really made it part of my journey this year to focus on the intent and focus on the experience. And then when I look down, there's beautiful art anyway. I think sometimes when we crave the perfection, we lose the personal touch.
Mm, exactly.
And yeah, so your theater analogy really like fits into my journey right now, and I'm gonna remember that because I think it's a beautiful way to look at things. And I
Yeah, I
think,
mean,
sorry.
we put in the human aspect. It's impossible to be perfect. I'm very perfectionist as well. So everything out of place, I see it. But I do think we need to embrace it because it's part of the humanity, these little mistakes with air quotes here. They're not mistakes, they're part of that art in that moment.
I listened to a Dutch educator, her name is De Moon, and she was speaking about how practice makes personal. And I
Mm,
love that because then, we need a practice because we need the skill. And I totally agree with that. But we need to embrace the fact that my skill and your skill and my vision and your vision are never going to align. And I think maybe it's because with sharps, there's some aversion in the community, in the greater kink community, to sharps being a harm. Um, so I think that you always want to strive to have the perfect piercing piece so that nobody thinks anything less of you because of the sharps that you are doing, especially with self-stab.
mhm.
So I think that you're scared to show up and just show the experience. Like it's really hard to just be authentic and say, well, this is my piece. And it doesn't look like anything. It's total chaos, and I love it. I think there's a judgment. Well, I felt it for a while anyway. And I think now I've just embraced the fact that I know I have the skill and I know that I have the knowledge, and I can now just enjoy the journey and make it very personal. So
Mhm.
your comments are definitely hitting home for me today.
Thanks. Right.
You did a beautiful big piece though. Tell me about these the 500 needles.
Well, that happened. I was purchasing some more needles, and I happened to notice that the 27 Gs were just 99 cents a box. And well, usually I go for bigger gauges, and I've been working on getting bigger and bigger. So the 27s aren't usually what I would purchase, but the price was so low, and I was like, I need to have that. So I was like, maybe if I get 10 boxes. So I went ahead and I purchased 10 boxes of that. And I proposed to my partner something like 1,000 needle scene. So we set off to that, and he even told me, you don't have to go to 1,000. You do what you're comfortable. And I told him, I know, I'm going to. This is more like, let's see how many I can take, right? So we started. I brought a couple other colors, some orange, some blue, just to mix in because the 27s are just a clear hub, and we're artists, and we want to add a little something extra there. And he is a total artist, so he didn't want to just pack me full of needles. He did one leg like that. He packed it full of needles, but he wants to do his cool stuff that he does, and he did all his beautiful work. But that's time consuming, the artistic part. And he started to get tired. He said his neck was hurting. And we went to count, and it was 450 needles. And I was like, okay, can we please round up to 500? So he put in another 500, another 50. So we ended at 500, but I'm going to be honest, I could have gone for more. Because of the artistic part, it was a little bit more lengthy. So I am looking forward to, as soon as possible, try just packing in as many as possible and seeing really how many I can take. Because I think I could have gotten to 1,000 if we had set aside the artistic part and just packed in needles. But I can't be upset because I think it turned out beautiful. And I always love the experience of doing needles with him. It's just, he makes me feel really special and pretty.
Oh, I love that. Isn't it funny that I spoke to somebody really in the beginning of the season, and they were saying that they always feel beautiful when they have needles in them, and I think that I so related to you. Just sort of said this, echoed the same thing, that it makes you feel beautiful. I also feel so beautiful when I'm adorned with these sharp things. And I have the biggest smile on my face. I think that's probably half the reason why I feel beautiful, is because I can't stop grinning. And if anybody wants to go and have a look, there are some beautiful pictures on FetLife of the piece. It's really stunning, and just amazing work. Taking them out, how long did it take you to take them out?
I don't know. It was probably pretty fast. He was just pulling them all out at once. We did one leg totally packed with needles, and the other one he did something more artistic, but I had my leg up, bended, and I think because of the position of the leg, something happened, and those needles on that leg became extremely painful. My whole leg became very, very sensitive. So that was something that was kind of taken away from the scene, because usually I'm not feeling pain from the needles during the scene. So I think the muscle tensed up or something. So we took those out really quickly. And then the rest, honestly, once I got rid of that pain on the leg, I don't know, the rest just came out. I'm flying high at that point, and it was probably pretty quick. He took them out pretty fast.
And I do have to say, like, I completely like echo the fact that if I found needles for 99 cents a box, like I would definitely add them to my basket. I think that's like a sign, like from a higher power. Like those needles were meant to be yours, and you were definitely
And
meant to take them home.
yes, and with the clear hub too, because I was getting, when I was purchasing them, I was trying to purchase like rainbow colors. And I was like, oh, they're so small, but the clear hub is perfect to mix around with something in just, I don't know, the 99 cents. I was really like, I need a lot of these.
Oh dear. And so you've already said that you are aiming to do a big piece with a lot of needles as probably your next challenge.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, obviously sometimes we think of things, and my partner has his own ideas as well, but that's my personal next challenge. Now I guess I need to buy some more needles because we used half of the ones that I had. I have a big trip coming up, and I'm not going to be back in Los Angeles till the end of October, so I'm going to do a little pause in my play for a while, but then I am definitely going to have to do something big for Halloween, especially since going like almost 2 months without playing. You can expect something big for Halloween for sure.
And it's Halloween. Like if we are not celebrating, it's the one holiday we should be celebrating with sharp things. I'm already celebrating Halloween. I did a bloodlining of a ghost on a friend on my Suchi demon sister's back last night, and I was like so in the Halloween mood already. Like I know it's only August, but I'm embracing every second of it. It's my best
Hey,
holiday.
it is. All the stores here are already saying it's Halloween, so I guess it's okay to be with that mindset now, and definitely calling for some scary, bloody scenes for sure.
I just feel like we're subjected in my country to Christmas music from like the beginning of November. Like you can go to the shops and have Christmas music from the beginning of November. Halloween's not really celebrated here. So I
Yeah,
feel like I've got to dedicate a little bit of extra time to it so it really gets celebrated in all its glory for all the people who don't celebrate
yeah,
it
it's
here.
definitely very extensive here, and not being American when I got here, it was overwhelming how we get to August. I mean, it's still summer, and the stores were already showing it in such horrible things, and they're all so scary and so bloody. And it was very impactful for me when I moved here how much everywhere you'd see these things. And now I'm more used to it, but definitely I enjoy being able to do some scenes that go with the holiday.
Yeah, I love that. You've done some hooks, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you found that experience, and you had them pulled a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
That was a little while ago. It's been a while since we've done hooks. I'd love to do it again soon. Those are all my tops ideas. At that time, I was still very, very new, so none of the ideas were mine. He would suggest, I'd say, okay, let's do it. So he wanted to do that pull all over on my sides, and I'm pretty sure I was in a cage that he had in his private
Yeah.
dungeon. So he attached the strings to the side of the cage, and they were with elastic bands to give it a little bit of a stretchiness. And I love the sensation, especially on my arms. I remember wishing I had a lot more hooks so I could fully release the weight on my arms and just let the hooks take over the weight, but there weren't enough hooks to do that, and I did have to keep a little bit of my arms up. Probably I was scared that my skin was going to tear. I was still pretty new to the needles at that time. Maybe if it were now, I'd let go a little bit more. I am very obsessed with the idea of the hook pulls, and that's why I've been moving towards larger gauges. I'd love to do hook suspensions and things like that. So that is something that I'm working towards, the tolerance for that.
I wish you the best of luck in the bigger with the bigger gauges, and I have to tell you that the hook pull, when it's time, you'll be ready.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful experience, and yeah, I think you'll embrace it. The other picture I just wanted to mention that always stuck out of yours is the needle through your feet. Like that is like that is still like I've put them in the top of my toes, but I haven't put them through my toes yet. So tell me a little bit about that, because that's a lot of fear all in one go.
Yeah, that day was a lot. I had them in my toes and also through my fingers in one hand. The
Wow.
hand was much worse. I think because the hands are so sensitive, they felt very painful to go through. And then I was in a lot of, well, not a lot of pain, but really feeling it for the next couple days made it difficult for me to do things. I didn't like the hands, but the feet, I would do that again. I haven't had the opportunity. Again, my top's idea, and he did one side. And I think the first side he was more gentle and just did the very tippy top of the toe. And when he went to the second one, he was a little bit more brutal. I remember yelling out and cussing a little bit, but it was like most of the needles that it hurts when it goes through, and then it was fine after they were through, and it was a very, very nice experience. I definitely enjoyed the toes. I'm looking forward to doing something like that again.
I have a very scientific minded switchy needle sister. So we top for each other and we bottom for each other, and I come up with these crazy projects, and then she spends a year risk mitigating them and making sure that I'm gonna survive the process. And then she eventually does it, and my whole process was to put safety pins through my fingers, and then
Mm.
hang things off them. Um, and I'll never forget her face when she put the first needle through my finger and I screamed blue murder. And she was like, I didn't expect that. And then she didn't want to do it anymore. She was like, no, that was too much. And I was determined to finish it. But the pain was so
Oh,
intense. The fingers are
yeah.
insanely intense.
Mhm. Yeah, the fingers were very hard. I didn't want the other hand. And being that I use my hands a lot during the day, I've already told my partner I don't want hands again. But the feet, I didn't have that experience. I didn't have trouble walking after or feeling the location for days after. It was very easy recovery. It was very different from the hands.
Yeah, my hands felt like I'd been in a fight. They felt like
Yes.
I'd really like been like boxing somebody, and I'd been in a fight, and they felt seriously bruised and seriously tender, and like it definitely I relate to what you're saying a lot, because um they felt harmed. They probably were harmed. Like I can't like, and I was the complete instigator of it. I was determined to do it. So but I think that's why I've been a bit nervous about doing it to my feet, because I'm on my feet all day. So I didn't want to have the same
Yeah.
experience wearing the boots that I have to wear all day. But I'm glad that you told me that it wasn't as bad as the fingers, because I think the fingers were pretty epic. It was a play that I don't know if I'd repeat again in a hurry.
Yes. Well, people are different. You said your stomach hurt and mine doesn't, so I can't guarantee anything. But for we're okay, especially in comparison to the hand.
Okay, so maybe I should just try one toe and see how we go, and see if it works out. I did a self pierce on my toes the other day. I was so brave, and I put five little needles
That's very
into my toe, and I was so proud of myself. My poor
very
partner is
well.
sorry.
No, that's good. If you were able to put them yourself, I don't think I'd be able to do it myself. My toes.
My partner's not a masochist. He is not involved in pain in any way. Our relationship isn't at all connected with sharp things. And he thought I was absolutely crazy. I was super excited, screaming in the house about these 5 tiny needles in my toe, and he was like, "She's really lost it. This is a bit insane." I really loved chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing a bit of your beautiful journey. And I hope you have an amazing break, and a really good time out. And I can't wait to see your work when you get back and hear a little bit about how your trip was.
Thank you. It's been really nice being here, chatting with you. I really appreciate you having me.
And for all my listeners, guys, we are about to start to drop our presenter list for Rain of Blood. There are still some early bird tickets. I really suggest you get an early bird ticket. I have all this insider information about who our presenters are, and I'm just bursting. I think at 3 o'clock this morning, I was hopping around the lounge, screaming excitedly, which is pretty normal at the moment because we keep getting these amazing humans saying yes to coming to present for us. So we have some classes that are just going to blow your mind, and my team is really excited. They're working super hard. We have some amazing Summer of Stabs classes. Our Ren of Blood Patreon has all the recordings on. So if you want catch up, that's the way to go. And we hope that we see you in the classes, and we hope that you tag us on FetLife so we can send your work some love, and that we can give it some appreciation and share it with the community. And we hope that you're having a bloody good summer. And from my dungeon in a very wet and rainy Cape Town, to you wherever you are, lots of love and kitten kisses.